Hi, I'm Kate Paradoxa, and I'm doing a video review for this book by Kim Dallesandro titled Dream Maker. It's her third book that she's published. Um, I believe it was published within the first year of her starting out published with her very first publications in 2021, and she now has like 11 books that she's published in the less than 4 years since then, I think it was. So, or it's been so far now. She's published 10 of them as novels, and one of them as an anthology of short stories. This is the third one that she published, and I just finished reading it. It's a wonderful sort of mystery and drama type of book. It's definitely a literary drama first and foremost. It's got twists and turns in it, but you don't see them coming. If you just open up the book and read it, you don't immediately get the sense that it's going to be a mystery. It's as you're reading it that it becomes more and more mysterious as you go along the chapters. So it's really interesting for the fact that it really reads like a somewhat I would say it definitely has a setting and mood for a drama piece that you're not expecting to go in any particularly odd directions with it as from the beginning of it, but it just gets weirder as you're going along. And I didn't really predict as I was reading it that it was going to get as weird as it got towards the end. I didn't have any notion that it was going to get as good as it really got, as far as the mystery element of it, until the last two chapters, which I just read like in the last just in the past day of reading today. like um I didn't realize just how the book was going to turn out by the end of it. It's definitely a page turner for sure. It starts out totally different from what you're thinking it's going to be. I mean, the way that it goes along is completely unpredictable, and it's definitely I would say it's got a bit of a Jacob's Ladder type of um, element to it. The atmosphere kind of even is it's one of those books that you realize after the fact from reading it how much the atmosphere kind of gives away about it, and yet you can't tell upon the first reading that it's going to go in the direction that it's going in. I wanted to read the back here to give the the description of the plot line for it, as it's described on the back here. It says here, Dream Maker. On July 15th, 1976, 26 children and a bus driver from Chowchilla, California, were kidnapped and buried alive in a rock quarry 106 miles away in Livermore. This is not a story about that. This is a story about the people who lived through that. This is a story about fear, mindful meditation, loss, and most importantly, a story about what is a lie and what is the truth. a story about living, and a story about dying, a story about letting go and surrender. There's more on the back here. These are just quotes from people who are recommending the book. And it's really, I mean, personally, I really enjoyed this book, and I recommend it to anybody who likes, I would say, anyone who likes surprising mysteries, in a way, like mysteries that have a very normal sort of pedestrian, I think is a good word for it, like a very normal pedestrian sort of tone to it, or atmosphere to it. Like the elements involved in it, it's weird because in a way they allude to it, like going along, but you don't really know it. Yeah, you don't really know it until it's already revealing itself in the narrative. But you can get a sense of it in the atmosphere that something's off in the plot line. There's a puzzle in the storyline that something doesn't quite fit as you're reading each chapter. But it's one of those things that doesn't give itself away too immediate. It's got such a natural atmosphere to the mystery that you can't really guess it. It's definitely not one of those things that you can guess until it's really letting itself known, especially towards the end. It's I believe it's a 115-page book. So it's not like a super like long storyline. Like this isn't like something that, I mean, I took my time reading it personally because I always take my time reading books. But I mean, uh, this is a book that probably the average person will be able to read through in a matter of days, or within a day for some people, I'm sure. But it's really fascinating. The story revolves around the main character of Maggie and her some of the people in her life, namely Jenny and Chester and Dr. Abels, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, who she meditates with and is employed by. She works for him and writes notes for him and things along those lines. And basically, it's this strange atmosphere of people. Each one of the characters has got some unusual quirks about themselves. They're all a little bit mysterious. Each of them are. Jenny has a early childhood memory of someone named Martha. I won't give too much away about that, but there's definitely a main plot point with that character. There's also a character named Paul, who is a bit of a mystery. He's not generally central within the scenes, but he's always in the context of the scenes. He's often mentioned in the scenes, but he's not present within them. So he's an interesting character. By the end of it, it's a completely different storyline than you thought it was going to be, or how it was playing out throughout the chapters. It's a totally different book from anything. Like, I can't really compare it to anything. I think it has a bit of a, without giving away too many details or anything, it's definitely got a surreal element similar to Jacob's Ladder, but it's different. I mean, it's its own. It definitely has more of a pedestrian element, I think is a good way to put it. Like, it definitely has an element of, these are everyday people, this isn't a conspiracy novel or anything like that. It's like but it's definitely a human drama that involves, just the nuances of circumstance is a good way to put it, I think. So I definitely recommend this. She has, like I said, 11 novels in total that she's published. She's only just recently published her most recent one. She published like within the past like month or so. Maybe it was like a couple months ago now. That one's title is Cappy. Um, I have several of her novels that I'm planning on reading. Now that I've finished this one, I have her very first novel that she published. Before I even realized that she was going to be publishing more books, I bought like a bulk set of copies of her very first novel titled Trains. I bought it because it's an autobiographical novel about her life when she was homeless, she was living on the trains over in Europe, like around Germany and whatnot. I haven't read the book yet, but I know that it's about her life when she was a teenager, and like 1968 was the year, I think. So I plan on reading that soon. That's the one autobiographical novel that she's published. The other ones are all fictional. I've read through part of her short stories novel titled, I'm trying to think now, the name of that is The Seduction of Solitude, I believe. And I don't know, she's, all of her, just based on the descriptions of all of her novels so far, that from what I've figured out of those descriptions, they're all interesting and different. And I don't know if I can really say that she has a specific niche, or like she's definitely, she's got such original concepts for each of her books. And this one, I mean, there was no guessing like what like the story was going to be like plot line wise. It's a very fascinating book, though. I definitely recommend it, um, particularly to anybody who just likes to be completely surprised by what it all unfolds as. Like by the end of it, you're not gonna know from like the first 100 pages. You're not gonna have any idea of exactly how it is going to like turn out to be in the storyline. And the last page of it, well, I read it earlier today. The last couple of chapters or so, I read earlier today, and the last page of it, I wept from reading the last page. I don't know. It's just I think the way that she was. I think it's the way she wrote it. At the end of it, like the way that the writing of the last page of it, like, or it must have been the last page or two, um, like the way that she described how everything, like the resolve or whatever, what was occurring throughout the entire book, that wasn't completely clear until that last page or so. Like the way that she wrote it and the narrative of it, the poetic quality of things. She describes, without giving too much away, she describes dreams and imagination and just sort of, the way that the mind works in a way. Like she describes it in vivid detail in such a way that it's like she's describing just perception itself, like the way that we look at things in everyday life. Like she describes it in such a way, like by the end of it, when I was reading in the last pages, like those last few pages of it, like the way the way it was written, it really just kind of, it's mind-boggling the way her writing can really affect your perception in a way, because it's just like one of those, gosh, it's like a mind bender of like what's real and what's not, like what is real life and what's fantasy, what's dream. That's the title, Dream Maker. So anyway, I definitely recommend those I recommend it to those who like surreal stuff, but also likes very grounded in reality type of writing, type of narrative structures. There's a lot of fragmentation in this too, I should mention. The fragmentations in this book throughout it. Every time I was reading the shifting in like perspective, or I don't know if it was specifically that every time, but like it was sometimes it would be shifting in perspective, but also sometimes just the shifting in how she would speak to the reader and to herself. There would be a lot of splintering there going on in a fragmentation style splintering in the narrative that's clearly intentional in the way that she formats it. And it's really interesting reading it because it's kind of it's a jarring narrative structure that I imagine if it was like not to go on a tangent about it, but like I almost imagine like if the book were like a movie, like the scenes, the way that would be played out in the scene, like the way that narration would occur. I just imagine her like having almost like a voiceover speaking, like she would be speaking almost like third person perspective about herself in a sense. Maybe not third person, but she would definitely be like kind of reflecting upon it, like reflecting about all the scenarios, because there's so much shifting from a memory to current situation or current setting and back again. There's so many times that she does that throughout the story of it. It's like it's genuinely like you're reading a puzzle, like it's a narrative puzzle. It's really wonderful, and she does it frequently in such a dynamic way. It's a very compelling read for that factor alone, just like that way that is. And she definitely she knows how to shift that perspective so frequently that it has you seeing it. It's definitely multidimensional, definitely. So anyway, I can't recommend this enough. It's a really good read. The second time that I read this is going to be a totally different way of looking at the storyline than the first. That's the thing, is you're going to probably want to read it twice. This is the thing. The first time you read it, you're not going to know anything about going in, and it's going to be strange. By the end of it, it's like that wow moment at the end of it, like what in the world, what kind of story is this? It's wild. Like by the end of it, it's like it put me in disbelief by the end of it. And the second time that you would read I haven't read it 2 times yet, but I just imagine the second time reading it, like the second time that I read this book is going to be a totally different observation of her narrative structures and the fragmentation. Knowing how it ends, you go back and you read it and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like a totally, I'm sure it's just like, that's got to be a totally it's a very complex thing to like. So anyway, the second read might even like add something to it, because like how it turns out, and it's like, oh my gosh, it adds like that it adds a depth to it. It's like it already like has so much going for it in the first read, and this is like the second time that you would read through that through the narrative structures and those dynamic shifts in perspective between her memories and the current, in the present tense, and back and forth to all these different things that are sometimes sometimes they're kind of random, but like it's piecing together puzzles, like puzzle pieces essentially throughout the story. So it's like it's just totally compelling, and I look forward to reading more of her books. I look forward to reading this one again just for that reason alone, for how strange that is with the formatting and the narrative structure itself. Yeah, I look forward to reading more books by her. One I really look forward to is titled The Absurdity of Abstracts. That's a bit of a longer one, I think. It's a longer one than this one, I think. So I'm not sure. I didn't check the page count, but I have the book, and it's like, it's just a bit of a thicker book. So I don't know, but it's really interesting. Her books are just from based on what I know of all the variety of them, because there's 11 of them in total. She just writes so many different. The feeling I get about it is just she writes very different story. I like the ideas seem all very different, and I should mention like she's published more novels than Stephen King has since 2020. Like this year is 2024. She's published more books than he has since the year 2020. But I mean, she started publishing like in 2021, so that's actually giving Stephen King an extra year than her. And that and so far in the 2020s, she's published more than he has. I think he's published like maybe 7. No, it might be 8, or even maybe it's 9 now. I'm not sure. It's like something like that. But earlier this year, I know he only had 8 books published. I think, yeah, and she has several more published in his. So it's just really interesting. But I'm going to go ahead and upload this to YouTube. And probably TikTok if they do long videos. I'm not sure, but all right.